Welcome to the Secure the Perimeter podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Secure the Perimeter podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship versus employment. So, look, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I thought it was important to talk to everybody about the evolution of all of these online entrepreneurs that are these gurus and experts. And I really feel like we have to talk about this thing about being an entrepreneur, because I think a lot of people are misleading. And I want to be clear about this. Not everyone makes a good entrepreneur. And it's not a good idea to start a business on your own and just jump out into the pool, because let me tell you, from a guy with experience, it's not for the faint of heart. So I want to talk about that today, because there's just a lot of online gurus that, are these all of a sudden duty experts about, being an entrepreneur and running a business. If you could imagine a mountain, in front of you, and you had to climb that mountain, there's a way to get up the mountain. But to be an entrepreneur is on the backside of the mountain, and that is a cliff. And that's just the way it is. And if you want to get to the top of that mountain, you have to overcome the obstacle of the cliff. That's what being an entrepreneur is all about. And it's every day. When you climb a mountain and you're on a cliff, it's not a part-time thing. You can't just put it on pause and just kind of climb the cliff the next day. It's every day. So when you're talking about being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of things involved in that. And one of the biggest things is your clarity, your focus, and your strategy. And I feel like a lot of people don't have those. In fact, most people are average, or most people that are average get up and go to work every day. And some of those have a hard time making it on time, let alone being an entrepreneur. So I'm just here to be real and be practical. But I want to steer everybody in the right direction. And I think that, the idea of becoming an entrepreneur is a bad idea if you haven't proved it out on paper. And I also think it's a bad idea if you don't have a plan. And I think it's a bad idea if you don't have a proven history about what it takes to do anything with consistency. So, look, there's employees. There are employees that go along with businesses and get into the leadership perspective of the business, and then there's entrepreneurs. I look at it as three main categories. Being an employee, you get up, you go to work, you do your job, you get a paycheck, you go home, and you get to shut the business off when you go home. When you're in a leadership position in that business, you get up, you go to work, you get a paycheck, and you share some of the risk, and even some of the reward, but you're not directly strapped to the business. When you're an entrepreneur, it's lights on 24/7. You share in the risk. You have all the risk, rather. You have some of the reward, but most of the time, it's an uphill battle, period, no matter what people say. The Mark Zuckerberg idea doesn't come every day, and businesses don't flourish overnight. They just don't. It takes a lot of years and a lot of time. That's just the reality. And if you're one of those people that you've got the patience to wait 10, 15 years to grow your business, then more power to you. You might be the right person for the job, but if you're not, and you don't have that tenacity, and you don't have a history of showing up consistently day after day for years, you might want to rethink your strategy about being an entrepreneur. It's a journey that is very arduous, and I don't want to mislead anybody and tell everybody that entrepreneurship is the greatest thing and it's for everybody. It's just really not. I feel like there's a select few people that are called to be an entrepreneur. And for me, and I was just sharing this with a friend of mine, I realized in my business, being, a business owner, that it's really turned into my ministry. It's how I connect and relate to people. It's how I'm able to serve and help other people. That's not the case for everybody. Their ministry or their purpose in life, as I call it, is a different calling. They might be the best employee in the world. And so, you might say, well, Brent, how do I do that? Okay, maybe I am an employee. Maybe I'm an employee and I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. You have to recognize that and know what your real purpose is. And let me tell you this is another thing that drives me crazy about people online. Find your purpose, find your passion, and you'll never work a day in your life. That's just all a bunch of crap. It just is. It's crud because they're misleading you again. I don't care if you love making cupcakes. You're going to get up some days and not feel like making cupcakes. You might create flowers and rainbows. There are going to be days that you're going to get up and it's just going to be arduous no matter what. So you're never going to have a picture perfect purpose or passion, whatever that stuff is. It's just a bunch of rigmarole. And I just think it's very misleading as well. I love security. I live and breathe security. That's what I'm most passionate about. But there are still arduous days. You have issues. You have to deal with issues every day, whether it's vendor-related issues, whether it's employee-related matters, whether it's processes that you're trying to struggle through. There's just struggle every day. You just have to learn how to process those challenges and those setbacks. And there's going to be setbacks every day. But you just got to keep showing up. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who don't even really know what the definition of a leader really is. And, in the Bible, in the Word of God, it talks about serving other people. A lot of entrepreneurs are just flat misconstrued because we're here to serve people. As an entrepreneur, it's not a one-way street. Your employees work for you, but you work for your employees. And quite frankly, I see a lot of business owners and leaders who have this really prestigious placard on their desk, and it doesn't even belong there because they're literally sitting behind a title. They never sit in front of their placard, as I always say it. I was, in the Marine Corps, we talk about lead from the front. And there's another slogan that we use, lead, follower, get out of the way. Somebody's got to lead. But to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower. And that's a righteous leader. And, we're called to serve people, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an employee. And again, it is critical to have employees. You need employees. And some people make the best employees. And some people, that's all they want to be as an employee. They don't want to be the business owner. They know that is not cut out for them. And that's quite all right. That's okay because it takes the equal balance of employees and employers to make an economy, period. And that's just the nuts and bolts of it. But again, we're called to serve. And as a leader, you're there to serve your team. You're taking care of their welfare. You're paying them. You're giving them benefits. You're giving them time off on the holidays so they can spend more time with families. And look, I'm not here to call any entrepreneurs out and say that you're running your business right or you're running your business wrong. I run my business a certain way, but I also like to give a lot of time off because it's important to reboot and refresh even for me as the entrepreneur. And I've put in 80-hour, 90-hour, 120-hour weeks. It's arduous. But there comes a time when it's time to refresh and reboot and get perspective and take time off and focus and get clarity. But we're called to serve people. And in God's word, we're called to serve people. The Bible talks about serving. You got to work hard, and there's nothing wrong with working hard, as my friend says. There's no shame in working hard and putting in a hard day's work. Employees do it all the time. Employers do it all the time. And the people who slack, it talks about that in the Bible. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands will make a man lazy. That's in the book of Proverbs. So you can be lazy, but you're not going to get anywhere as an employee or an employer. And if you're one of those people that you have more knowledge about Netflix shows and you have more knowledge about the latest hits and the latest music, you might want to really look at yourself and evaluate yourself as to whether or not you're lazy. Because people who get after it, whether they're employees or employers, don't really have time to sit and watch all the Netflix series and know what the latest hits are, in music, because they're getting after it. And that's employees as well. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be an entrepreneur to work hard. I see a lot of employees that are phenomenal, A-grade employees. They make the best employees. And again, that's all they want to be. They just want to be an employee, and that's fine. That's great. And they also get after it. And they also don't know what the latest Netflix series are or the latest hit songs because they're focused on their company and helping their employer grow the company. And listen, it's the rising tide with the ship, right? When you help grow your organization, your company, whether you're the employee or the employer, it helps everybody. And so to serve other people, to be a good leader, you have to lead from the front. You got to get out in front of that placard and stop leading behind a title. So many leaders hide behind a title, and it drives me crazy. It disgusts me. I've sat in more boardrooms among senior leaders of organizations and companies that just didn't even earn the title leader, let alone be the CEO, be the senior level executive. And so you really got to put the time in, but we're here to serve. We're called to serve people. The resume for an entrepreneur is a lot more demanding than it is, just a regular employee. So when you share in that risk and you're part of that business, it demands a different part of you. And so I just felt it was important to set the record straight about, this idea of becoming an entrepreneur. And look, let's look at it economically. Economically, it doesn't even make sense, because if we created all these entrepreneurs, then the market's going to be upside down because we're not going to have enough employees, to grow the business and to be part of the business. Every business needs employees. And this idea of this remote work and this, remote work kind of concept about, we're just going to run the business remotely and we can run our business from our laptop. Well, that's beautiful when it comes to, administrative things like paperwork and things like that, but who's actually going to do the work? So that just economically, it doesn't even make sense. You have to have people physically touching a product or being part of a service team and actually doing the work. It's necessary for any economy. And so the idea of creating all these entrepreneurs, while it sounds good and it sounds enticing because it's your daily motivation, the reality is the lights are on more than just one day. It's every day in and out, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So don't be misled by these people that want to encourage you to be an entrepreneur. You really have to take a deep dive into that and find out from yourself, aside from what everybody tells you, whether or not you make a good entrepreneur or not. And for every one person that thinks that they would make a great entrepreneur, there's 10 more that tells you that they tried and failed. Maybe 20 more. Maybe 50 more. There's a lot of people who tried to run a business and start a business and they failed and they went belly up and they lost everything. And I can tell you more people that lost and went out of business because they failed than I can people who started a business. And that's a big, big number. That's a big, statistic. So all this stuff you see online about, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to create your own cupcake shop, be very cautious, man. You really have to do a deep dive in yourself. And so I want to encourage you guys. We talked last week about being hypervigilant and having focus and clarity and how to get that focus and clarity. You really need that, for your journey, whatever that's going to be. And this is aside from the temperature of the water and the state of the union on where things are at in this world with all the, the rhetoric going on right now in our public and our political, environment. So understand what your capabilities are. That's number one. Understand what your capabilities are and what your elasticity is and what kind of person you make. Do you make a good employee? Do you make a good leader within that organization, or do you make a good entrepreneur? And there are good entrepreneurs out there. There really are. But I promise not every business is the next Facebook idea. Not every business is going to blow up overnight, and not every business is going to go viral. Most businesses take years to develop and to grow. And it just takes sheer tenacity. It's the cliff on the other side of the mountain. So when you go up the mountain, think about the entrepreneur on the other side of that mountain that's literally climbing the mountain up the cliff. And sometimes it's like cliffhanger, where you're just suspended by a rope because you don't even have enough traction to grab, rock to get up the mountain. So that's what being an entrepreneur is all about. So again, I just thought I would share this with you guys today, talk about this whole thing about being an entrepreneur. Be very cautious. Please do not be misled. Don't think it's a gravy train. Don't think it's easy. It is not. It is everything but easy. It is everything but easy, and it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of determination. I think that's important. So I want to thank you guys for joining the Secure the Perimeter podcast. Next week, we'll have more great content. We'll talk about more things in which will help you secure the perimeter in your own life, whether it's your faith, your family, your finances, or your family. But Thanks for joining, and we'll touch base next week.